silk and pick 'em when I really get to clicking, but I'm looking for a sister to revive 'em when I kiss. Hey dreamers, I'm back and it's time to get into our Game of Thrones recap once again. We are at season 8, episode 3, and this was off the chains. The name of this episode, was The Long Night. And I have my notes here, so let's get into my favorite moments of the night. First, I will say yes, it was difficult to see this episode because everything, unless it was lit up by fire, it was so dark. So, what I did when I watched the third go-round, when I watched it for the third time, play with the settings on your screen, guys, and brighten up your screen, and then you'll be able to see everything that you need to see going on in this episode, because I promise you I was confused about a few things until I did that, and I'm so glad I did. But anyway, let's jump right into it. We don't want to make this too long, but it was an epic battle. So let's start with a Sea of Fire, and I have this this will be on my blog as well in a post, lilacdream.com. If you're interested, if you're new here and you like this content, consider subscribing, liking, sharing, and hit the bell icon to get the notifications of when I post, usually Mondays and Fridays. Game of Thrones usually comes, when I do Game of Thrones, usually comes sometime in the middle of the week after the episode is aired. So okay, now we're done with the preliminaries. Sea of Fire. Okay, Melisandre shows up out of nowhere, and she goes to the Dothraki army. Now, all the armies and the defenses of Winterfell and Daenerys are lined up ready for this battle. The Dothraki and the Unsullied are among the first lines of defense. And so Melisandre shows up, and she asks Jorah, can he speak the Dothraki tongue, and asks him to tell them to raise their swords. And they do, and she takes one in her hand, and she does this incantation, and the Dothraki carry swords called aurochs. I think it's called aurochs. And so she sets one aflame, and then all you see, they pan out, and you see just a sea of flame lighting up, just the aurochs lighting up in line. It just seems like it's just panning across, and it just seems like a sea of flames coming up. And I thought the effect was so cool. I was like, yes, Melisandre for the win. And like one of the producers says, it kind of gives you in the very beginning that small taste of hope that, hey, maybe they just might pull out of this battle alive. So after that scene with Melisandre, and I'm just like, honey, you might want to look out, because Davos made you a promise that if you came back to the north, he would kill you himself. So you might want to be tread carefully here in this battle. But anyway, she came through in the clutch. So the Dothraki go off running, ready to battle the army of the dead. Unfortunately, soon we see all of those aurochs winking out, and just very few of them coming back. So pretty much the entire Dothraki army that came across that sea with Daenerys is done. And that leads me to my next moment, where Daenerys basically just nixes the battle plans. So whatever they had set up to do to wait for the Night King, that was it, because she felt responsible for first bringing them here. She brought them here to, you know, help her be her army so she could become queen and yada yada. And they found themselves in this fight that they were not expecting, and so there's basically a whole race of people just wiped off the planet here, or the Westeros world. And she felt completely and totally responsible for that. So she was like, dead here, I'm getting on my dragon, and we finna do this. So she hops on Drogon, which makes Jon hop on Rhaegal, and they begin lighting up the night with the dragon fire, and destroying as many whites as they can with the dragon fire. And it was so dark, especially that first go round, that the dragon fire was very welcome, because it finally lit the scene up at least enough for you to see some of the things that were going on. So next, another Melisandre moment. Here for it. Like, she was clutch to me throughout this episode, okay? So the lighting of the trench. Danny and John are on their dragons. And John at one point he spots not specifically the Night King, but his generals or whatever you want to call them, the actual other White Walkers and not the whites. And he goes towards them, and like this wind, this coldness just kind of blows him away or whatever, and he's like out in the, no telling where the hell John is. And Danny is up in the air somewhere, and they're signaling to them that they need to light this trench that they built to stop, again, another line of defense to stop the White Walkers from coming towards the castle further, and they're not getting the signal. So Melisandre steps in again, and she takes the trench in her hands, or a piece of the wood in the trench, and begins reciting the incantation once again, and she's reciting it fiercely this go round, because it's taking a lot longer, and you're kind of wondering if this is even gonna work. And just in the nick of time, the trench lights up, the whole thing, and boom, defense against the whites coming. So it was beautiful. I loved it. I was like, yes, Melisandre coming through. I appreciate you. So after that scene, we go to the Godswood, and Bran and Theon are there. Of course, Theon has volunteered to defend Bran, you know, from the Night King when he comes, and just protect him, because basically Bran is the bait for the Night Kings. If the Night King basically gets rid of Bran, he gets rid of people, period. I mean, really, if you think about it, because Bran is the memory of everything that's gone on in Westeros, in the world, since the beginning of time. So if you erase that, then what do you got? Death. And death wants more death. So and so they have a little moment there where Theon wants to apologize to Bran, and he begins to apologize, and Bran kind of stops him and says, all the things that you did basically led you back here, back to your home. Which, if you think about it, yes, Winterfell was kind of Theon's home. I mean, he was a prisoner of Ned Stark since he was a very young boy. I want to say about the age of 8 or 9. And so he grew up in and among the Starks. Even though he was technically a prisoner, he was never really treated as a prisoner. And I would say he was more treated as a ward. And grew up among Jon, grew up among Robb, and was more like their brother than a prisoner or anything like that. So Ned essentially was more of a father to him than his own father ever was. And so yes, he did come back home, and it was really shitty, all of the things that he did in the past. So it was nice that Bran kind of gave him a little bit of comfort in that, saying that, yeah, you messed up, but it led you back here to this moment and this time, and this is when we really need you, and you're here. So I was like, okay. Personally, I still hold a grudge against Theon. I am not that forgiving, but we'll see. Anywho, next, yes, little Lyanna Stark. I didn't call her Stark, no. She's named after Lyanna Stark. Little Lyanna Mormont. From Bear Island. Bear Island knows no king but the king in the north, whose name is Stark. And her little, I just love her. She was squad goals from beginning to end. And she was like, no, I'm not finna be down in the cribs with the other helpless people. I'm not finna do that. I'm going to be out on the front lines with my men fighting. And Miss Little Lyanna goes out like a G. I hate that we had to lose her, but the way we lost her, I was like, okay, that is my girl. She, first of all, gets smacked like completely out of the way by this big giant, this undead giant or whatever. And she gets up with her little axe or whatever it is she has in her hand, and she runs towards the giant like, not today. This is not what we doing today. And the giant takes her and grabs her little body and crushes her. And I'm like, no, not the baby. And then the giant starts bringing her like towards his face like he's gonna eat her. And I'm like, no, it's not what we do. No, don't eat you already crushed her. Like, really? You're gonna eat her too? But he brings her close enough, and she jabs that little sucker in the eye with some dragon glass, and it is poof over for that big undead giant. So the little smallest person takes out one of the biggest creatures in this universe, and I was here for it. I was like, I'm sorry to lose you, Liana, but you went out like a G, and I appreciate you. So yeah, that was a little heartbreaking, but very triumphant moment. So next we have the Hound barks. Okay, now the Hound, just like the Battle of the Blackwater, he sees all the destruction, he sees the death, he sees the fire, and he is losing his shit. Okay, now we all know at the Battle of the Blackwater, the Hound was done. He was like, forget the king, forget this nonsense y'all talking about, this fire, no, not finna do it. And he left. He abandoned the whole mission. Hound out. He was done. But this time, he's sitting there, and the whole time, I'm like, okay, now, Clegane, get shit together. Like, come on now. This ain't the Battle of the Blackwater. This is like the battle for civilization. This is life and death. This is not who's going to be king and queen. Okay, so he's like over in the corner losing his shit. Beric Dondarrion is like, come on now, we need you here. And he's like, okay, why does any of this even matter? The dead are here. They pretty much won this. Like, why are we even still fighting? Oh, but then he finds out his girl is in trouble. He finds out that Arya is having a hard time with these whites over here, and she is being bombarded. And I don't know what it is about Arya, but there is some kind of affection that this man has got for this girl. So he got his ass in gear, him and Beric Dondarrion, and they rescued her from this horde of whites that was after her. And I was here for it. I couldn't believe it. I was like, because, you know, the Battle of Blackwater, he was like, no, I'm not finna do that. But, I mean, Joffrey, does he really inspire somebody to want to really defend him? No, because he was a butthole. But anyway, Arya, however, is not, and she can basically defend herself, but they grew some kind of odd, weird relationship, and he was not having it when it came to Arya. So he sucked it up and did what he needed to do to rescue Arya from basically certain death, because she was pretty much overtaken by the whites. So him and Beric came through in the clutch. Here for it. Now, directly after that scene, Arya, the Hound, and Melisandre end up in a room together. They had closed the room off to the whites that were coming after Arya. Now, this scene is pivotal because it gives us a prelude to important things to come. So, Melisandre and Arya, when Melisandre first came on the scene and Arya spotted her, she remembered her from their very first encounter. And she gave her, like, the look or whatever. And so she began speaking with Melisandre, and she's like, you told me we'd see each other again. Now, she wasn't the biggest fan of Melisandre the first go-round, because this was when, their first meeting was when Melisandre came to take Gendry away, or whatever, and Arya was not feeling that, of course. And on their first encounter, and Melisandre reminds her of this, and Arya says, you told me that I would shut many eyes. And Melisandre says, yes, brown eyes, green eyes, blue eyes. And the light bulb goes off in Arya's head. And then Melisandre further reminds Arya of who she is when she asks her, what do we say to the god of death? And Arya answers, not today. Not today. That is important, guys, okay? What do we say to the god of death? Not today. Now, this was one of Arya's first lessons when she was first started being trained way back in season 1 in King's Landing, when her father hired Syrio Forel, who was a Braavosi dancing master, to teach her the ways of the sword and you know, all that kind of stuff or whatever, because she had Needle, and Ned felt like if she was going to have this sword, she needed to know how to use it properly. So he hired this man to teach her. Okay? And Serial always taught her, what do we say to the god of death? Not today. So this was a throwback to season 1. And I almost shouted, guys. I almost shouted. But anyway, so Arya, like I said, the light bulb, after she is reminded of who she is and where she came from and how she was trained, the light bulb goes off in Arya's head and she's out. Okay, so the next scene, let's see where I'm at. The Dance of Dragons. Oh my God, this was so cool. So finally, like, we're all like, okay, where's the Night King? We see all his little people. We see the White Walkers. We see the Whites. What's going on with the Night King? And finally, he appears riding Viserion, the Ice Dragon now, because he's undeaded Viserion. Excuse me. And so Viserion pretty much takes off after Drogon, and then Rhaegal is there, and then it's just a whole battle and dance with the dragons, and it was epic, and I loved it, especially when I was able to actually see it. And then at some point in this, Drogon is able to unseat the Night King, and he goes tumbling off of Viserion into the abyss or whatever. And then at some point, Rhaegal, he and I think he and Viserion can continue fighting at some point. And all I know is at some point Rhaegal kind of goes down, and he upends Jon, so Jon goes flying off of his dragon, and he's okay. And so we're like, okay, did Rhaegal survive? We're like, what's going on? Whatever. And so, yeah, the Dance of Dragons was cool. I loved it. Yeah. Let's see what's next. Let me check my notes. The Unbothered. And when I tell you, Unbothered, okay? So after the Dance of Dragons, Dany rides off with Drogon or whatever, and she gets closer to Winterfell. She sees the Night King standing there, and she's like, oh yes, here's my chance. This is my chance to get him, because they are anticipating that either Valyrian Steel, Dragonglass, or Dragonfire will be able to kill the Night King. So she's there, she's on Drogon, the Night King's standing right there, and she says the infamous word. We all know what Dracarys mean. If you're a fan of Game of Thrones, you know what Dracarys means. So she Dracarys, and nothing happens. The Night King is still there, like smiling too, like, yeah, you tried it. So we now know that the Night King cannot be killed by Dragonfire. So what is it that kills the Night King? So I just thought that was a pretty good moment. Like, we finally find out that, hey, we thought the dragons were going to be the solution to the Night King, when in all actuality, not so much. So, next, we go to the crypts. Now, a thing with the Night King. After we find out that he cannot be killed by Dragonfire, Jon is up and he's after him. He's trying to get to him with his sword. He has a Valyrian Steel sword, of course, we know. But in the middle of this, and this was my concern from Jump Street. I was like, okay, we all know the Night King can raise the dead. I said, so what about the dead that actually, the people who end up dying in this battle, like the alive people that end up dying in this battle, can't he just raise them up as well? And that's exactly what happens. He raises up all of their dead comrades. And so now they have a whole nother problem to deal with. They have more dead people to deal with. So Jon is after the Night King. He raises these people up, and they're like basically surrounding Jon. So he has to deal with this, and can't really get to the Night King. So at the same moment, we go down to the crypts, and he's raised the dead. And this was another concern of mine. They kept saying how the crypts was the safest place to be, and I'm like, but how though? How are the crypts the safest place when we're talking about a Night King that can raise the dead, and the crypts ain't nothing but full of dead Starks? Like, how does that work? Somebody help me out here. And yeah, that's exactly what happens. He raises the dead, and then the crypts come alive, and the dead people start breaking out of their old crusty tombs and stuff and start attacking the alive people that are in the crypts. I'm like, y'all really didn't think this through, did you? So anyway, thankfully it seems like most everybody survived, but yes, there were some casualties down there in the crypts. Thankfully nobody that we would probably really care about. So but yeah, not the greatest plan ever. I mean, I don't know where they would have put them, but the crypts, really, with the dead people? Come on now. And, okay, then we have Bran and Theon Part 2. Okay, so because, yeah, the Night King has been able to reach Bran because of all of the shenanigans going on outside of Winterfell. Jon is pretty much stuck. He's trying to get to Bran. But Viserion is not having it, so he's like facing off with Viserion. Dany is fighting off Whites with Jorah. At some point, I really thought she had used him as a shield until I brightened my screen and realized that he actually nudged her out of the way. I finna say, really, Dany? That's what we doing now? But anyway, so the Night King has made it to the Godswood with his White Walker generals behind him or whatever. And so Bran knows this is pretty much it. He knows it's it for Theon. And he says, Theon, you're a good man. He's giving him that last bit of thank you, man. You know, you've redeemed yourself. He's like, you're a good man. Thank you for basically thanking him for his service or whatever. So Theon runs after the Night King once he appears in the Godswood. And yeah, we all know that did not turn out very well. So Theon ends up passing, and yeah, the Night King approaches Bran, and Bran is just kind of sitting there, unbothered. He looks him up and down, like, okay, you know, whatever you're gonna do, do it. Ain't much I can do about it, you know what I'm saying? So, and then, oh, but then, y'all know, okay, I jumped out of my seat. I was yelling and screaming. I could not contain myself. First of all, I realized later, after the rewatch, that there's this small puff of wind we see blow one of the White Walker's hair. And I finally realized that was Arya. Now, I don't even know where she came from the god. I don't know if she had already concealed herself up in a tree or what. But Arya came out of nowhere with her Valyrian steel dagger. The very same dagger that was supposed to be used to kill Bran in the very beginning of the first season. The same dagger she comes out with, jumping, ready to kill the Night King. Unfortunately, he catches her mid-stab. And I'm like, oh, no! So here now you just really think it's over. It's like, damn, that was the last defense because Jon couldn't get to him. We expect Jon to be the hero, but no. And so he catches Arya mid-air. But then Arya drops the dagger from one hand, catches it with the other, stabs the Night King, and poof, gone. Y'all, I'm telling you, I was yelling and screaming, and it was crazy. Okay, I could not believe what I just saw. And if you remember, that was the same move I think that she used when she was doing her little thing with Brienne when she came back to Winterfell, and Brienne was like, who trained you? And she's like, no one. Anyway, it was just, oh, what a triumphant moment. And then, of course, once the Night King has been decimated, then all of his minions are done too. Then all the White Walkers dead, all the Whites dead, everything that everybody else was dealing with done. Arya Stark for the win, guys. I was like, y'all better be out here grateful for your little sisters because they come through. You hear me? I was here for it. I couldn't contain myself. I've watched this 3 times now. I will be rewatching it again. Out of all of the battles, oh my god, there have been so many good battles, and to me the battles have gotten bigger, better, and more dynamic each season. First you had the battle on the Blackwater with the wildfire. That was crazy. And then you had Hard Home when Jon had to go and get the wildlings, and that's when we first kind of really see and meet the Night King. That was just epic. That was just, oh my god. And then you had the Battle of the Bastards, and I thought it couldn't get any better than the Battle of the I loved, I don't know, I can't even tell you how many times I've watched that episode, the Battle of the Bastards. And then comes the Long Night, and oh my god, it was so good. If you have not seen it, well, I hope you've seen it, because I really hate to be spoiling anything for everybody. I assume anybody watching this video has seen this show. So yeah, anyway guys, I'm so excited. I cannot wait to see what happens this week. Arya Stark for the win. That's been my girl since day one, so I'm just like, yes, Arya. I'm gonna make me some shirts. I promise you, it's gonna be Arya Stark all day long over here. But anyway guys, I would love to know what you thought about this episode. Again, if you've been having trouble actually seeing what's going on in the episode, brighten your screen. It will help exponentially, okay? So, yeah, that's it for this one. It ran a little, I'm almost at 30 minutes, guys, but I think that's to be expected with this episode, because it was just off the chains. There's too many moments in this. And I do want to give a quick shout out, I have my list here, to all the people that that we lost this episode. So first, Melisandre, she came through in the clutch. I mean, she had 3 big moments that were pivotal to the show. She takes her choker off that keeps her young and just passed away of old age. And a lot of people were asking, well, why did she do that? And I think Melisandre feels like maybe she fulfilled her purpose, and that was her purpose, and she's done. So she did this. She did as she promised Davos, for him not to worry about killing her, because she would be dead before the dawn. And that's exactly what happened. Of course, Lyanna Mormont, we know she died killing a giant, went out like a G. I appreciate you, Lyanna. Ser Jorah Mormont, I love, he passed away doing what he would have been wanting to do, which is defending Dany, because he has been in love with her from the beginning. And though that never would have worked out that way, he has reconciled himself to that and just wanted to basically protect her, which is what he did. So Ser Jorah Mormont went out, and which makes me think, what happens to the Mormont line? Because Lyanna, I think, was the last heir, right? And then Jorah's gone too. So does that whole house just die out? Theon Greyjoy, of course, dies defending Bran. Ed Tollett, Dolores, or aka Dolores Ed. I swear I thought these were 2 different people, and they may be in the book, so I need to check that. But anyway, he dies. He saved Sam, and then soon after saving Sam, he dies by the hands of a white. So, defending one of his brothers, he goes out, which is appropriate. An appropriate death for Dolores Ed, or Ed Tollett, whatever you want to call him. I'm going to just call him Ed. Whatever. And Lord Beric Dondarrion, of course, we know that he has been brought back to life several times, but Lord Beric has finally served his final purpose, and he died defending Arya and saving her from the whites. And to me, it was about to make me cry, but anyway, to me it was appropriate, because Beric was one of her father's men. He had been there from the beginning, and her father actually was the person that sent him out to find the mountain when he was doing all his shenanigans in the first book. And then we know that Beric transitions into the Brotherhood and or whatever. So for him to come full circle and back to Winterfell and be defending a Stark when he dies is just appropriate. So and then pretty much all of the complete Dothraki people have been wiped out, and a lot of the Unsullied, which sucks, because I love the Dothraki and I love the Unsullied. And anyway, I'm getting emotional, so I'm gonna get off this So guys, please tell me, what did you think about this episode? What are you anticipating for the next episode? Like, let's discuss in the comments, and I will see you guys in the next Game of Thrones recap. Sunday will be here before you know it, guys. So yeah, that's it. Talk to you later. Bye.